What's going on, college football fans? Aaron Murray here with a new edition of Snaps. No T-Bob today. He is still in New Orleans at the Super Bowl doing what T-Bob does, grooving and moving and hugging and kissing and whatever else. So instead, we're going to the face of On3. JD PicKell, gracious enough to join us here this afternoon. JD, man, appreciate you jumping on the show once again. And then obviously the big news of people, I think everyone watching the show knows this, but a new father, a brand new father. Yeah. So tell us how the offseason's been dealing with the changing diapers.
Dude, it's been phenomenal. I mean, you and I were talking before we jumped on here, but it's been a blast. It's been a learning curve to all the expecting dads out there. I don't think I read one parenting book. I don't think I got a rep at changing one diaper, and she's still living and breathing, and we're all good. So I'm a testament to you just throw yourself in the deep end, and you can make it work. And just grit and determination, baby.
I know. We always say like every birthday is like, well, they survived another year, I guess. Somehow we're doing something right because they're still alive, they're still breathing, they're doing well. What has been the biggest adjustment? We'll get the football study, just to lay out the land real quick for the show today. We're going to talk a lot about the Ryan Day situation, new contract there at Ohio State. Where does he rank and where should he rank among coaches in college football? Did he deserve the raise? We'll get into that. Obviously, On3 does a tremendous job when it comes to recruiting. We'll talk about some of the rankings, where JD believes which teams won and which teams lost during the entire process, portal recruiting for high school. A little Super Bowl talk and some other nuggets around college football as well. But first, we're going to wrap a bow on this parenting thing. What's been the hardest part for you? Come on, what's been the hardest part? Is the wiping? Is it the lack of sleep? What is it?
Yeah, I think I would give you a different answer if you had asked me maybe like a couple of months ago. I definitely would have said sleep. But honestly, dude, she's been sleeping through the night, which has been sensational. I think every good quarterback and coordinator got to have some good synergy. Hey, what play call do you like in this situation? I mean, you know that better than anybody. I think now with my wife being the OC, to what I would say is myself being the quarterback, us getting aligned on how to divvy up our time and how to, get the right play calls in for her has been something we're adjusting with, so we're finding our rhythm. But all in all, man, I can't complain. It's been a blast.
It's a new world, man. It is an absolute new world, but you'll be fine. And once again, if you need any help, just call me. I got your back. If you need any help, yes. I got your back. All right, let's get into the Ryan Day conversation. Ryan Day just became the second highest paid coach in all of college football, over $12 million. Only Kirby Smart has the highest, is higher paid. And that number 3 is Dabo Swinney. So all top 3 coaches have won a national championship. The only coaches right now that have won national championship are those 3 in college football. And I know the negative out there is, hey, he had this stacked football team. He was loaded up. He had everything that he wanted, from quarterback to the running back to getting Caleb on the back end, the defensive back position. Did he deserve the raise? First off, we'll do that first before we get into the rankings of where he is in your mind. Did he deserve, and does he deserve to be the number 2 highest paid coach in all of college football, JD?
Man, I think he absolutely does. And I know the first pushback outside of what you just mentioned with the roster talent is, well, you got to beat Michigan. JD, they got to find a way to beat Michigan. Otherwise, he doesn't deserve this money. I'm like, he just came off of a year where we had the longest football season ever. I would argue the most difficult national title run ever. And I understand the pushback on the talent, but you still got to make the talent work together, right? And there were different points throughout this season where Ohio State didn't do that. The Oregon game, clearly the Michigan game. So for Ryan Day to be able to, at the most critical time of their season in this playoff run, get it to all gel and for them to fire on all cylinders, I think he absolutely does. And also, Aaron, just to like zoom out a little bit, he's checked essentially all the boxes outside of that one that's maize and blue. 70-10 as a head coach. Okay, that's pretty good. Consistently recruits in the top 5. If he was born on third base, which I know a lot of Michigan fans like to say, he would have been called out by now. Urban Meyer last coached in 2018. So I think he deserves a ton of credit. I think he deserves the raise, and I think he is right now, in correlation to what Kirby's paid and what he's paid, the number 2 coach in college football.
Are you surprised, kind of a little bit off the topic of and we'll get to the rankings, there's a big push now for coaches to, not big, but we talk about it all the time, at least T-Bob and I do, of why would you want to coach college football. Like it's a physical, mental grind of everything that you have to do with NIL and transfer portal and academics and kids getting arrested. It's an absolute nightmare. If you're a good enough coach, why not dip the toe in the water of the NFL possibly? Is he, do you think that was it? Was there any moment for Ryan Day do you think of, hey, I accomplished this national championship? There is some friction between me and maybe some people there at Ohio State because of born on third base conversation. Did you anticipate or thought maybe at some point there would have been like this middle finger, hey, I won a national championship, screw you guys, I'm out of here? Or is he through and through a college football coach?
I think what you just said is absolute money. Like as the confetti drops and we're there in Atlanta and watching him on the stage, you're like, he's like, you've done it, dude. Like you can drop the mic and say, I can coach college football at the highest level. Like I'm going to go spend more time with my family. I'll go be around adults at practice all the time like that. And I don't have to worry about kids missing class. So there's a part of me too that thinks that after you get to the mountaintop, you think, it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, you and I are both parents now, and you read that book to your kid, you give a mouse a cookie, I want some milk. You get that first national title, you're like, okay, I mean, Columbus actually ain't so bad. Yeah, I know they weren't nice after we lost to Michigan, but shoot, I mean, I'm probably going to get a nice little pay raise, and we have a chance to keep coaching Jeremiah Smith. So I wonder if there's a part of that factors in. But if there was a different ending to that story, and let's say the worst case scenario is they get bounced against Tennessee in that first round, I think he would have said, whether Ohio State said it or not, I think he would have been like, cool, I'm out. I win double-digit games a year, and I can't even order Uber Eats because I think someone's going to do something to my food, So I do think the national title probably kept him in Columbus, and I think it obviously warrants this extension.
Well, let's be real. If he lost to Tennessee and maybe even the second-round game, I don't know if Ohio State would have brought him back at the end of the day. So that would have been more of a discussion, I think, for them than him. But I think Ryan Day is a great coach. I think that, yes, you got to find a way to beat Michigan. Maybe that's next year. But our main goal in life, and this confused me a little bit last year and in years past with this conversation of that game. And I get a rivalry game. Like, listen, I played in multiple rivalry games, versus Florida, versus Auburn, versus Georgia Tech. Like, I get the importance of it. But at the end of the day, the main goal is to win championships, whether that's an SEC championship, a Big Ten championship, a national championship. That ranks higher in my books. Call me crazy, but bringing home a trophy and a national championship trophy means more to me than if I would have beat Florida and Tennessee and all that. Is it different though because of that game? Is it how much grace is winning a natty even though you've lost the last 4 to Michigan?
I think it probably differs from the Ohio State fan base to like what the college football public thinks. Like if I'm an Ole Miss fan today waking up and I ask you, what do you think about Ohio State? You're like, oh, they just won the national title and Ryan Day got extended. But like an Ohio State or a Michigan fan is like, can't beat Michigan. I think for Ohio State fans, it probably should at least settle the score, like forgive, don't forget kind of vibe. Like if they lose again this year to potentially a true freshman quarterback, there will be a discussion. Not that he's fired, but there'll be a discussion that's pretty uncomfortable, I think. But for me, the comp has always been like, I went to school in the Northeast, and the people that I went to school with that had parents with rather large checkbooks, they were obsessed with this like Canada Goose jacket. You know what I'm talking about? You ever see those jackets? It's like got this certain logo, and like within that bubble, dude, it was a big deal. But like if you go to Atlanta, Georgia, it's like, I don't care what jacket you have. Like just stay warm. It's like the same thing for Ohio State, Michigan. Like it's all the rage in that bubble. And it's a big deal in the college football public, of course, but I don't think it holds the same weight when it comes to like discussing Ryan Day at a macro level, or at least I don't think it should.
No, I agree. There's frustration, no doubt about it, but it's about championships, man. It's about bringing home a ring. And I know Cam Newton cares more about his Heisman than winning the MVP than a Super Bowl because he won the Heisman and that championship. But winning championships is what it's all about. Okay, individual awards are great. It's all about winning that championship. Rivalries are great. It's all about winning that championship. So I think much deserved. Good for Ryan Day, no doubt about it. Which brings us to our next conversation. Kirby Smart heading into the last offseason, was like, okay, Kirby's king of the mountain, no doubt about it. Nick Saban's gone. Obviously, I know this. There's a damn Georgia helmet right behind me. Georgia has an Alabama problem. Well, now Nick Saban's gone. Georgia's not going to have an Alabama problem anymore. Kirby Smart is clearly the best coach in college football. 2 national championships. Dabo Swinney's out of touch with the new era. Ryan Day can't beat his own damn rival. All these narratives. Kirby Smart's going to run college football. And then Ryan Day wins the national championship. Obviously, Georgia kind of had some struggles this year. Is it as clear cut as Kirby won Ryan Day 2? Is there a little bit of a push for that one spot? And then kind of how would you look at your next few after those two, if those two are your 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think the way Ryan Day's tracking is really interesting because there was this long discussion too about Kirby Smart for a while. You just mentioned the Bama problem. Even before that, it was like, hey, is Kirby the guy to get him over the hump? Because, we're going on year 5, now it's year 6, and then year 6, they pop win a national title. His 7th year, they win another one. So Ryan Day, year 6, gets his first one. Can they run it back next year? And it remains to be seen with new coordinators and all they lose. But the Kirby Smart discussion is interesting because while this year they were, I think, the preseason favorite to win it all, or at least top 2, depending on where you looked, I think this year Aaron was his best coaching job of his career. Like Georgia, for all of their talent, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't think they were really all that elite at anything. They were good at a lot of things, but like, what, in the 50s defensively? They're like 102nd rush yards a game.
That loss to Bama looks so bad right now, though. I mean, the way Bama finished the season, the way like I covered Bama in the bowl game, and I know it's a bowl game, and a lot of players weren't playing, but Michigan didn't have a lot of players playing either, and a lot of their All-Americans on defense did not play in that football game. Alabama was not good all year, and you lost to Bama, so I can sit back and agree with you in the sense of like, yes, the team was maybe overhyped heading into the season. You still had some bad losses that should not have occurred because you were still the better roster. Like you were a better roster than Bama. You were a better roster than Ole Miss, and yet you didn't win those games. And I can you probably still say you're probably a better roster than Notre Dame, and you lost that game. And I get like the Carson Beck's injury thing and that Gunner's making his first start, but Gunner was not the reason why Georgia lost the game. So I'm not here to bash Kirby and say it was a bad job this season, but the losses were still not good in my mind.
Losses were very, very tough, especially because of who you just mentioned. They were two teams that didn't make the playoff. But it's funny, Aaron, when we flip it on its head, like against teams that made the college football playoff outside of their playoff game, like they were 4-0, like beat Texas twice, beat Tennessee, beat the brakes off Clemson. And so I get those aren't playoff games, so you can't weight them accordingly. But the interesting thing to me was I went back and looked at, the SEC points per game and points allowed per game. Georgia was very, very close to identical with LSU. They allowed, I think, 3 points more a game than LSU. LSU went 8-4. Like it wasn't a shining resume for Georgia, statistically speaking. So to me, I'm like, okay, if Kirby can do that and get them to, the second round of the college football playoff, obviously they have a bye in the first round. I was really impressed that Georgia did what they did. Now, did I expect more from them going into the year? I thought they'd win the national title. I thought they'd go into all these things. But still, for them to get where they got, the losses are bad. It was un-Georgia-ish. I wonder a little bit, too. You know this better than me. I wonder a little bit if you give Kirby the ammo now of a roster where it's like, hey, y'all were not only not here for the second national title, y'all were here for the first national title. Like, y'all haven't done jack squat. I wonder if a little bit of ammo for him maybe makes Georgia a little dangerous here in 2025.
I don't know if you want to give Kirby any more ammunition for those pregame and halftime speeches. They're already pretty fiery as it is. But I mean, are we correct in saying is Kirby still 1? Is Ryan Day 2 in your mind? Like I said, is it how close is it? Is Ryan Day 1 more national championship away from flipping that to being the best in the game?
I think so. I think for Ryan Day, how he adapts is going to be my biggest question. To give you a direct answer, it is Kirby 1 for me. It is Ryan Day 2. I need to see Ryan Day not shapeshift, but be able to adapt now to new coordinators, new personnel. Like Kirby Smart, the year that they repeated, they came into the year, they were like 96th in returning production. So it was a new group. And granted, they still had Stetson Bennett and he elevated, but that to me is the next step for Ryan Day. Like all these coaches that are going to get statues in front of their stadium are guys that could adapt with the times. Saban being the archetype with how he adapted on offense and how they adapted their defensive personnel to get faster. So it's a roundabout way to say, can Ryan Day do it again with different people on his staff and his locker room? That to me is going to be the test of his legacy and what we think about him in this discussion next year.
Yeah, no, it's a big one. I'm with you. I think Kirby's still 1. Ryan Day 2 with the national championship. Obviously, you got to put him ahead of Dabo. But I think Dabo is going to be in a position this next year to be very, very competitive with the way Cade Klubnik kind of progressed. I thought Cade had an incredible season. You bring him back, get some more weapons around him. I think Clemson is in a really good spot to make a move even farther than they were just making the first round playoff this year. But 1-2, Kirby, Day. I was a big fan, and especially T-Bob was a big fan of DeBoer heading into the season. We believed he was a top 5 coach. What he did his entire career, the track record, what he did at Washington, obviously beating Sark head to head multiple times, or those 2 years. He's kind of fallen a little bit, for me, based on what we saw this year. So I don't know if he's in my 5 or not, but I like them. I like Sark. I'll go with you first, though. Who are your top 5? I guess now 3 through 5 after those first 2.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think the criteria and like the preface to that discussion is interesting, because if I'm doing like just off resume, Dabo's probably 3, right? I mean, he's got 2 national titles. But if we did this on our show, and I did like top 5 college football coaches as of like right now. And for me, I'm still wondering how Dabo's going to adapt with the portal. I like that they're dipping their toe in the water. I like the way they're trending, all that. Like, I love Clemson next year probably to win the ACC if we're sitting here in February. But at 3, I have Sark. I mean, the dude's made the playoff in the 4-team model and the 12-team model. They show up to the SEC and they take, Georgia to overtime in the conference title game. So I got Sark at 3, just the way he's built his roster and all of those things. I think they're for real. I think they're going to be sustainable, just wrapping up the number 1 ranked class. And then at 4, dude, I'm not giving up on DeBoer just yet. I'm not giving up on DeBoer just yet. I got him at 4.
Where's Lanning in your mind then?
I got Lanning at 5.
Okay,
now, if I were hiring coaches,
I Lanning at 4.
Okay, that's super fair. I think if I were hiring someone today, Dan Lanning might be, gosh, he might be 2. Like, I believe in him that much. But for me, the head-to-head is just so tough to look past. Like, the 3-0 with DeBoer over Lanning is tough for me to get behind. Now, DeBoer is also, to be fair, I think 2-0 against Sark. Now, how much do you want to weight that when Sark's been in the semis 2 years in a row? I don't know. But for me, DeBoer, I'm not 100% sold that what we saw from him at Alabama is a completely accurate depiction of what he is as a coach. Like, the portal bodies their roster. They can't really go to the portal by nature of the timing of Nick Saban's retirement to go replenish that. And then spring portal is kind of like, not the scraps, but it wasn't like,
it's a scrap.
Shopping at Walmart, right? You're not shopping at the high end.
You're getting guys that lost their position battles at their university.
Exactly. Or they want a bunch more money and you're like, hey, dude, you're good, but like, I don't know if we can pay you $1 million to be a rotational player for us. So I'm not so sure that with the right quarterback and with more weapons, Bama's going to be a different beast under DeBoer. Like, him having Ryan Grubb, I think, is huge. And I love Jalen Milroe's story. I love the way he plays football. He wasn't a fit for DeBoer. It wasn't. I thought it'd work way better than it did. But DeBoer historically averages 40 attempts a game on offense throwing the football. Milroe, the year before, it averaged like 20 attempts a game. And so it just oil and water. So I have DeBoer at 4 because I'm not selling stock yet, and then Lanning at 5 with the head-to-head.
One coach that's not in my top 5, but I would probably put him somewhere in the top 10, and a university that's kind of going all in right now, went out there and got got a great defensive coordinator, got the quarterback back, got the running backs back. James Franklin, Penn State. Yeah. Kind of feels like he's knocking on the door a little bit. We can all agree that the playoff schedule is very favorable for Penn State. I still think they probably should have beat Notre Dame and got to the national championship. They didn't, whatever. That's a bad look on him. But is he knocking on the door? And I think there's Marcus Freeman too. Where are those two? Like, how far are they away from kind of getting closer to that top 5? And do you anticipate those guys having an opportunity this upcoming season?
Oh, for sure. So to answer the Marcus Freeman thought really quick, I have him at 6. Like, I think what he's done in 3 years at a place like Notre Dame, where everyone's like, hey, kind of a ceiling to what you can do there, academic standards, South Bend, kind of a stuffy spot. And like kids today, don't remember Notre Dame being awesome. They remember them getting body bagged by Alabama and Eddie Lacy. And so I think he's rebranded that place. I think they're going to recruit at a higher level. I believe in his future a ton. But to speak to James Franklin, I got him at 9. I think we should be careful with narratives, Like, I just think in the new college football, there is so much more of a potential to come back from what would have been like a death sentence in the old format. Like Ohio State, after the Michigan game, we're all like, is Ryan Day the right guy? Like, should he be the guy next year? And then they go win the national title. We said the same thing about Marcus Freeman after week 2. Like, they lose to NIU when we're like, hey, man, I don't know. So everyone's trashing James Franklin, and he's earned some of those credentials, we know, with the way his teams have lost in, top 10 matchups in his record there. But all the dude does is win double-digit games. Like 6 of the last 9 years, he's won 10 football games. And one of those years that they didn't win over 10 games, it was a COVID year where they played 9 games. So, like, I like him a lot. I think it's a matter of when, not if, they can break through. They got to get some receiver. Like, you got to help my guy out and get some receivers.
It would be a different story. Because, I mean, Drew did not play well in the playoffs. I mean, at all. He did not look good. Even in the wins, he did not have a good playoff, unfortunately. But I thought regular season wise, he was really impressive. You could see even in the new system, he matured tremendously in my mind, taking some shots, being a little bit risky. Yeah, the interceptions went up, but the big plays went up too. And that was without any receivers. I mean, like none. I mean, it was Warren, and that was all. Those receivers were just, no one could get open. So you have I believe, a bona fide first-round quarterback. You're going to have talent on DC. You got one of the best defense. You're going to have one of the best DCs in all of college football. You just got him. I think this is a big year for James Franklin, of them kind of rolling the dice and putting all their chips in the center, saying, we tasted what it could be like to be one of the top 4 teams. We want more of it. We believe Drew is that first-round talent. Let's go out there and make sure that we can kind of push through next year. So I'm really interested to see what he can do, because I think he's a good coach. Once again, I'm with you. I think he'd probably be closer to 10 than 5 for me. But he's an opportunity to definitely move up after this season. All right, let's jump into a little bit of rankings. Once again, JD PicKell joined us on 3, does a great job when it comes to rankings. So make sure you go check them out. When you look at the rankings right now, Texas was 1, Georgia 2, Texas 5 stars. 5. That money, that state, Texas is as well positioned to succeed in this era of college football than anyone else, and they're taking advantage of it right now. Alabama 3, Oregon 4, Ohio State 5, and then you get Michigan at 6, which is impressive. A&M 7, Auburn 8, LSU 9, and Tennessee 10. That's your top 10 according to On 3. Anything jump out for you? Like, who are some of your big winners, losers, whether in the top 10 or outside the top 10?
I'll touch on Texas really quick, just because they're number 1, and so it's hard to say they're not a winner. A lot of people be quick to say it's NIL, it's this, it's that, and I don't think that's untrue. Like, I think Texas is armed and dangerous in NIL, but they also got some results to go with it now, and I think Texas, from a recruiting perspective, or from a recruit's perspective, should be, it's a sustainable option where we're going to win a lot of games. I have a chance to play early if I'm a dude, based on what I saw Colin Simmons do and Ryan Wingo do. So I think just they're super sustainable. To me, it's a matter of when, not if, Sark wins a national title at Texas. I truly believe that, as long as he's there. And just optically, like, seeing Texas at 1, how many times have we seen on National Signing Day that Bama logo there, that Georgia logo there? Like, it feels like Sark is approaching that territory, if you will. Now, he doesn't have the wins to back it up necessarily, but, like, you do the right things long enough, eventually the right results kind of find you. That's how Texas feels. But, I mean, Michigan, to me, obviously they make a big move yesterday, and they land Ty Haywood, one of the top offensive tackles in this cycle. Michigan recruiting at number 6, like, that's the highest they finished since 2017, where they were top 4. And so Michigan, we've talked about this before, but they've always been sort of like a do more with less. Like, they've always been, we're going to develop, and that 3-star that we snag is going to be a 5-star by the time that we play each other, and he'll wreck shop. They now have better raw ingredients under Sharon Moore, and I think that's super dangerous. But Auburn at 8, dude, after a 5-7 season, I'm fascinated by that.
They were to keep those guys together after that. I thought you would have seen them dip significantly, because, listen, if I'm a 4 or 5-star guy, there is some pride to where I'm committing to. Like, I want to be able to go tell my mom and dad, like, hey, I remember when I committed to Georgia. Georgia was the number 1 team in the country. It was Stafford and AJ Green and all these guys. I was like, I was walking around my high school like, I just committed to Georgia. They got Stafford. They're number 1. Like, there's a pride sense. You don't want to be a 5-star. People like, you just committed to a 5-7 team? Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you could have gone to Bama or Georgia, Ohio State. Why are you going to Auburn? So I'm with you. Like, to keep a top 10 team with that record, I mean, But it does put even more pressure on Hugh to produce, though. Like this is
For sure.
you better produce year for Hugh Freeze. And having the number 8, even though like I don't know how many of these guys are actually going to play, but it still goes to the narrative of year 3, you got the players. You had the players last year when it came to that whole index thing. He's got to go out there and win. Talking about Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, like Jackson Arnold is like the key to it. Like he's got to bridge the gap to the Deuce Knight era. It just has to happen. It has to happen. And is he the guy to do it? Remains to be seen. But to what you just said about like walking through your high school hallways and wearing your Auburn sweatshirt, if you're Deuce Knight, like how many Mondays he showed up and they were like, lost to Vandy, huh? Like that's what that's who you committed to. You sure that's what you're gonna do? Super impressive. And to me, that just makes me think that class thinks they can probably, a lot of those guys play early, or maybe there's something communicated there. I think they believe they're probably going to turn that thing around. The one thing that I am still TBD on is I don't know if it's a Hugh Freeze thing or a Peyton Thorne thing for why they haven't had success. I thought they'd be way better than they were this year. But then Peyton Thorne's thrown 19 picks the last 2 years. Like, do they have their guy quarterback yet? I don't know. So we'll see.
And I thought I saw some really good stuff. I did some breakdowns early on the season last year of Jackson Arnold, and I saw a lot of good stuff for a first-year quarterback. I thought I was impressed. And, listen, you get put into a somewhat of a slump at times, and you don't get protection when you don't have good receivers. I mean, we just talked about Penn State, for goodness sakes, what that offense could have been if they had receivers, and that's with an experienced quarterback. You're talking about an inexperienced quarterback without O-line and out receivers, and he did a lot of good stuff early, but then I felt like try to be Superman later on and then just started to bite him in the butt with some turnover issues. But talent-wise, the talent is there. There's no doubt about it. And I do think Hugh Freeze with those receivers, something they did not have for quite some time. Now you get those guys with a capable quarterback. I do think Auburn, you think they need to have a monster season for the sake of the Tigers and Hugh Freeze. One that's a little bit interesting to me, real quick, we'll move on from the rankings. We talked really high about Clemson and kind of the momentum they gained winning the ACC, returning Klubnik. But they fall all the way back in y'all's rankings to number 23, only 15 commits. Any worry about that and maybe the message not being there still with Dabo and what he's building not only for this season but going forward?
I think there has to be a little bit. I mean, finishing 23 after you just won the ACC and made the playoff, it's like,
is it a Clemson thing, though, or is it an ACC thing? Because I have a feeling, too, like, kids just don't want to play in the ACC. They would rather be part of the big boys. Like, how much does that play into it, too?
I mean, to prove your point there, Miami finished 13, and they had the top class in the ACC.
Yeah.
So you're like, I don't know if that necessarily makes me feel super – and they won 10 games last year. So, I mean, that's an interesting point I hadn't thought about, to be honest with you. I just think for Clemson, if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm like, don't love it, not great. But if we have the season we think we should have on the field, Dabo Swinney kind of becomes cool again. The logo has some more shine to it, and maybe things kind of turn around quickly. But yeah, being 23rd in America with that logo, with Dabo's track record, like you're not going to use the portal that heavily. So it's not great. It's not a good vibe.
What was their final ranking in the portal? Because they did get players, correct? They actually
did
dip their foot in there and get some guys.
Were they in the 30s? Let me pull this up too, because
they may have got like 2 or 3, but they got some.
Yeah,
they at least got someone, which is more than what they've done in years past. Clemson got 3 guys in the portal. To Clemson.
38 for us. I don't 3, and one of those dudes was a top 5 edge when he committed. The Will Help from Purdue. So dipping their toe, being surgical.
I think it's, to me personally, I mean, if you look at y'all's rankings, I'm sure ESPN and everyone else and Rivals, all of them are very similar. It's trending, and I know people get so mad at me when I say this. It's trending to be the big 2, and it is the big 2. It's like the NFL. You're going to have the AFC and the NFC. It's the Big Ten. It's the SEC. Coaches want to be a part of those leagues. Players want to be a part of those leagues. TV networks, which drives the revenue, which then trickles down to everything else, want to be a part of those leagues. It is what it is. Follow the TV. Follow the damn money. Where is the money going? To the Big Ten and the SEC. It's not that hard. They have the most money. The players are going to follow. Let's look at the top 10 rankings. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, 3 SEC schools, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Big Ten schools, A&M, Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, SEC schools, and then Florida, SEC school, and then Notre Dame. And like you said, Miami at 13. It's not rocket science, people. It's the AFC and the NFC. It's the Big Ten and it's the SEC. That is it. So it's unfortunate, but I don't think it's less of a Dabo issue. It's more of where we are in college football and where all the chips are placed right now. So
NFL draft picks too. To your point there, like I would bet money we'll finish this NFL draft and SEC Big Ten will be 1 and 2 probably, or at least 2 of those in the top 3. Like it's kind of how it works, right? If I want to play in the NFL, I go to one of those institutions that's going to put me in the league, probably. So I'm with you. It's trending that way. I think it'll get that way sooner rather than later.
Yep. All right. Speaking of the NFL, real quick before we get out of here, it is Super Bowl weekend. It is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Bulldogs, with half the roster being Georgia Bulldogs. I am torn. I was fortunate enough to have a cup of coffee in Kansas City for 2 years, and then actually 1 year in Philadelphia. So I'll be rocking Kansas City pants with a Philadelphia shirt, so I can't lose at all. And plus, all my dogs play for Philly too. But who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win?
So who I'm rooting for would be your Philadelphia Bulldogs you just mentioned. Like Jalen Hurts is just so likable. I like the Saquon Barkley story arc of New York let him go, and now he's just tearing it up at the NFL. I even think Nick Sirianni's hilarious. Like I don't know much about the guy, but every like soundbite and story I see on Twitter is just like so funny. He's just very unhead coach-ish, and I'm here for it. I can't sleep well at night putting money somewhere that's not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
If I'm picking a winner here, I'm more interested in the props here, Aaron. And this is, I mean, I'm not sure if you're the same way, but like for me, Sunday is we crank out content from the day before, and then it is like family time. We're hanging out, we're taking naps. So
I don't watch anything.
I haven't watched a lick of it, dude. I have no idea. I'm in the dark.
And you're a new dad, so you definitely ain't been watching football. Maybe a little bit when the babies sleep on the lap, but
very minimal. So I'm going to defer to you here. I will say I have a prop in right now, and I don't like telling people. I'm weird. I'm not superstitious, but for whatever reason, if I tell someone a bet, it just automatically doesn't hit, which I'm sure has nothing to do with my acumen as a sports gambler. That can't be it. I have Saquon Barkley anytime first quarter touchdown at plus 400.
Really, TD. Okay.
So we'll see. Well, that's where my allegiance lies right now is the first quarter for Saquon and Philly. But I'd be very, very curious to hear your take on this thing.
I'm with you. Like Sunday is like we cover football all week long, and then Sunday's like I get home and my wife's like, "Kids are yours. I need a break." I'm like, "Got it." I'm taking them to the park for the afternoon, so I really don't get an opportunity to watch too much NFL. But I mean, I'm with you when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. It's so hard to go against him, what they've done in the Super Bowl, what they do in big time games. So I lean a little bit towards Kansas City in winning this football game, but it will be nice though if someone else does end up holding up that trophy when it's all said and done. I think my boy JD kind of froze there. But anyways, appreciate JD PicKell for joining us here this afternoon. Appreciate you guys for listening once again this afternoon. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. T-Bob, once again, apologize for not being here. He is in New Orleans at the JD's back. He's in New Orleans at the Super Bowl. JD, we're just giving your roses before you head off. But man, appreciate you jumping on as always. Always a great guest. And can't wait to talk some more football later on in the spring.
Dude, I appreciate it. I apologize. I think we have some weather here in Nashville. Wi-Fi went out for like a couple of seconds, but we're back. I missed your pick though. Are we going Chiefs? That's where
I'm
I got
going Chiefs because of Mahomes.
Okay. Yeah. Done. Put the college fund on.
I think Philly's the better team. I think, I'm biased towards quarterbacks. I think Patrick is the best. So
what's the spread? Is it like 1.5, 2.5?
It has to be super close.
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking within like a field goal. It is Kansas City -1.
So KC, I mean, you don't take Philly +1, I suppose. You
just pick a winner.
The coverage. Okay. That's good to know. Okay. College fund is going. If my baby girl goes to college, it will be because Kansas City covers and wins the Super Bowl. So here we go.
And Saquon gets the first touchdown in the first quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go, Saquon.
Let's go.
Quadzilla, baby. Let's go. All right. Well, appreciate you guys listening in once again. T-Bob and I will be back next week. We will give you an update on the schedule. It is the offseason, a little bit dry with the content, but we'll continue to keep you lively throughout the offseason and into spring ball. JD, have a great weekend, and we will see you guys next week.